Isabella Geary. I'm the Executive Fellow of the Everett Program, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Today, we're coming together to celebrate the power of activism and collective action through the art of storytelling. This film is truly a testament to the impact of community in the face of oppression and adversity. As college students and emerging activists, we know that change is possible when we come together to fight for a common vision. Throughout this event, we invite you to reflect on your own roles as agents of change. Now let's give it up for Adamu for a few words.
Hello. How's everyone doing? Good. Go Slugs. Go Slugs. I don't really have much to say. Watch the film. I'll see you on the other hand. Lonnie's here. On the other side of this. That's all I gotta say. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Okay, well, we're gonna get started now. The center of this film is community, love, and trust, and most of the film production is actually by that community.
So the question is about how does community care transcend prison walls? I mean, sorry, I'm showing up too. Yeah, I mean, I think that most communities that are faced with obstacles or tragedies figure out ways to transcend that. And I don't think that communities that have experienced incarceration are any different. I think that for me, I feel like it was like really important in the way that the story was told. I just feel like a lot of films about prison are about like individual accomplishments and about individual people transcending their circumstances, or about programs in prison that transform people or change their lives. And whether or not that's true, I think that from my experience, what I experienced was that it's definitely more collective, and it's definitely about, I wanted to show the community that does exist inside, and that people still are connected to their communities. There is something, I think, in the violence of the system that is about isolating people and taking them away from what actually supports healing and growth, which is connectedness. And I think I wanted to tell a story about that, and that had a huge impact on my life. Not any program or not any, the media center is there, but it's not the reason why. It was the people. And people like Lonnie, who I really look up to, and whose friendship I value and whose mentorship I value. Those are the people that changed me. So, I don't know if you guys.
So, was community care, right? Transcending prison? Yeah, I don't know if community care transcends prison, but I think that it's important to sustain people. I think that Rahsaan Thomas, New York Thomas, the brother that you saw was the last person getting out, was supposed to be here today. And he's not here because his parole agent wouldn't grant him a travel pass. So for you guys that don't know, when you get out of prison, most of us are on what you call parole. Parole means you're out of prison physically, but you're not out of prison in totality. They still got a leash on you. And so anything you want to do, as long as you're on parole, you have to get permission to do that. So for us, like, if you want to talk about community care in a real sense, this brother's very frustrated because he's supposed to be here today. There's other places he's supposed to went to, up to Napa the other day, he can't go there. He's supposed to be in New York a month ago, whatever it was, and he couldn't go there. And so when you talk about community care transcending prison, right? Transcending prisons, it's about the people that care about you and love you. When he couldn't go to New York, he was very frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Very upset, and he had a right to be, right? Because the question is, how is it that I do 10 years, 20 years, in my case, 44 years in prison, and I get out, and I'm not out of prison? You know what I'm saying? I'm still under this control mechanism, right? And so those are the things, and not only does it impact my life in everyday life, but it impacts my life in major ways. because his missing opportunity to go to Columbia University to speak on a film that he put all his heart and soul to make it is a major thing, right? Rasan not being able to be here today is a major thing. And we're there caring for him. I was on the phone with this brother, talking to him while we was going to New York. I was on the phone talking to him when I was in New York. And then when we had the event, we put him on Zoom to make sure he was there in some way. So that's community care to me. That's the epitome of community care. So it definitely transcends prisons. And I think that the reality is that in life, you gotta find out how do you care for the people you love.
And you both talk a lot about your relationships, both inside and outside, and how these people step up for each other. We have a lot of folks in the audience who might not be familiar and acclimated with how communication works across prison walls. I'm wondering if you could talk more about the ways that prisons specifically cut off incarcerated folks from their communities.
Well, I mean, obviously, you're physically in prison. So you're in this little limited space where you can only go to certain spaces. Your accessibility to phones is limited. You're even just from an entertainment value, you don't have cable, there's no Roku, there's none of that. You just got basic TV, so you get channels 5, 6, 7, whatever those little local channels are. So all of that's limited. Your accessibility to technology is limited. And then the only way you see your family is on visits, and those visits are like once a week if your family can afford it. So it limits everything in terms of communication. And then we have to find ways to supersede that, to overcome that. We find different ways to communicate. If you notice that in the piece, Issa and Adamu spent time writing letters. They did a lot of letter writing. And so they were able to communicate that way. And letters become important. Phone calls become important. Visits are very important for people who have the ability or the willingness to come to a prison. Because when they come to Adamu speak, when they come to prison, they got to go through a lot of changes to come visit you physically. My niece came to visit me one time. They made her cut her bra off because it had wire in it. So those things are really, really, really horrendous. And it discourages and dissuades people from coming to prison.
Yeah, I think everything that you said, I agree with too. I wanted to show the way that people retain their connections across walls with letters, phone calls, but also through organizing and activism. I feel like it's a way that we communicate with each other and work with each other. And specifically during COVID, when everyone across the world was experiencing a lot of isolation, I feel like this community was really forming a lot of intimacy and a lot of trust and a lot of closeness. I had another point too, I can't remember what it was. I mean, I think the other thing too, we were talking about this in the car too, is that I also feel like there's a spiritual aspect to it too. And not to like get all up here, but I mean, for me, like this film to me, it has a spiritual kind of, there's a part of it that feels spiritual to me. And I think about the things that I think communicate emotionally beyond words, and I think, there's some parts of like music that have this and some parts of art that have this, but I think that there's something in the realm of feeling that is also a part of this film too, and a form of communication that people have that's like beyond all of that, so.
COVID-19, huge part of this film, and I'm sure presented unique challenges in terms of production and filmmaking. Rasan also coming home, made the final cut. How did you navigate these challenges, filming during the pandemic and producing this during the pandemic?
I think it was just, I think it was a lot of creativity, and I think what folks who don't have a lot always lean into, which is we got to try to make something out very difficult for me to get the footage that I shot inside out. And so I had to be creative about that. I won't reveal my secrets. So that's, yeah. Anyways, but yeah, I just think, I think about what I really love about creativity is like, this ability to like problem solve and like overcome obstacles. I feel like it's something that like really draws me to like artistic creation. It's just like, it's really about problem solving. It's really about like, there's this obstacle, like how can we transform it? How can we, you know, do something to like make something else? And I feel like that's also like a metaphor for like growth and for about relationships too. I don't know. It's I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah. I mean, I just think that like this film is so different than like the original film that I wanted to make, and that was the beauty of the process. Is like I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was like, oh, we'll just tell the story of COVID and like the organizing and stuff, but it actually turned into something. There was some intuition maybe or something. I mean, it was also like a very collaborative process and hearing from a lot of different voices and stuff, but it turned into something different. So I don't know, that's awesome.
I don't know about that. I mean, that's his question. He made me feel about this.
That's true. Okay, I'll give you another one. The film touches on the role of art and in the fight for abolition. Can you speak on the marriage between those two and incorporating art and storytelling as a means of advocacy, and how that was reflected in the production of the film?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I would just say that I feel like my role in the movement or whatever, you know, who haven't had this experience, telling the stories of other people, and I think that to me like feels very important and something that I would like want to encourage and inspire other folks to do, to take agency over their own stories, because those stories are going to be different. The stories that are out there are organized and manufactured by people who don't have the same political stakes. They don't have maybe the trust and love and care of, you know, the other people that are like in their position. So
Go ahead.
There are a lot of folks who want to plug into these movements and help support. How would you encourage the people who want to take part and uplift voices?
So, I guess, so I think one is, I mean, we're sitting here and I'm tripping because we see, I mean, I know you guys got a kind of thing that you got planned out how you guys want to do this, but I think going off script is important. So I think we can dispense with all the questions and just have a conversation. For me, if I want to ask me something, just forget the QR codes and all that stuff there. Just ask me a question, and if I can answer it, I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. Because one of the things I think that prison does is it cuts down human connection, right? And then you come back out here in society, and I did 44 years in prison, so I think I know something about isolation. And you come back here in society, and I find a society that's doing the same thing. You know, it's just cutting off human connection. You got everything. Text me. I talk to my friends all the time, and they say, text me. And I'm like, text me? You know, I got to text you and I got to text you 15 times to get an answer to a simple question. Or I can just call you, you know what I'm saying? So we just get caught up in this world of technology and way we do things, format, cohorts, and all this stuff. And it really loses the point that we're making in the film, that we got to reestablish human connection, right? And to do that, people need to communicate with each other as people, not as the technology, not as the text, not as the whatever, but as human beings. We all got voices unless we have some impairments, and we can talk to each other, right? And we just lose that. And so I think that for me, in terms of the movement and getting involved in the movement, the first thing we have to do is reestablish our human connection. get back in touch with each other and communicate with each other and talk to each other to find out where we're at, and then start figuring out ways that we can coalesce around things despite our diverse opinions about things. You know, we have different opinions. Some people this, some people that, some people conservative, some people liberal, some people all kind of stuff, right? And everybody got a right to be whatever they want to be. But the bottom line is, if we have a particular thing we're trying to accomplish, then we need to find ways to cut through all that stuff and aim for the goal we're trying to accomplish. And to do that, we need to find out how do we learn to communicate with each other in a way that's relatable to each other and that each other can respect.
I just want to say something. I just want to expand on one thing that you were saying, because the question was about how can people get involved. And I would just say, I met Isabel, Mo, Phoenix, and Tina group organizing. And during the time, during COVID, we were all part of a coalition that was fighting to decarcerate California prisons together. And I think, you know, in that, we didn't really know each other, like our paths didn't cross like on the street or something like that. But I think being in that work together, knowing each other, collaborating with each other, and building trust through that process, like really was important, right? And like it's like bled over into this film. It's like, you know, like we collaborate on a bunch of different things. And so I would just say that to say that I feel like at a lot of film screenings, people ask me like, how can we get involved? Like now we have like this, you know, film and like we have this information, like how can we get involved? And I think I would just say, in my opinion, before like people feel motivated to jump into a movement or jump into doing something, is like, what are your relationships like with these communities that you want to help or that you want to support? And I just think that that's like a really important question, right? I think that like there are a lot of people who are supporting themselves and supporting their own communities because they love people, they really want people to be free. And I think it's like really important to understand like like your own motivations for doing things and what it means to step into you know, a space where people are like fighting for their freedom and fighting for their lives. So that's what I would say for all the young organizers, young activists. And I'm not saying that that's not what y'all are already doing, but I think that's just how, and that's my piece.
All right. Now we have a couple of audience questions.
Let's go.
The first one is about getting clearances while filming inside. So what procedures did San Quentin have in place when filming inside, and how tough was it to get those clearances? I know you can't reveal your secrets.
San Quentin was a much more lenient prison, for lack of a better term, than say other prisons. If you wanted to go to Pelican Bay and film, that'd be a totally different landscape. But San Quentin, there was a person there named Lieutenant Sam Robinson. He was a public information officer, and for the most part, anything you wanted to do at San Quentin went through him. You contact him, and he would either yay or nay whether or not you could go, or he would send you up to Sacramento for a particular clearance. If he didn't really feel that he was comfortable dealing with whatever your request was, whatever your limited filming was, he would say, okay, you know, send that up, a request to Sacramento, and you have to write up a narrative about what you're going to do, send it up to Sacramento. They have their PIO up there and their communication department there. They review the thing, they say yay, nay, and then if they say yay, send it back down. Sometimes you have to get location, just like a film, you got to get location permits, all that kind of stuff. And then you come down to film. For what stuff that Adamo and myself was doing, since much of the stuff we were doing in-house, much of the stuff we did outside, we were able to film because we worked for the media center. So we were able to do filming in there and then compile our footage, edit it, what have you. And then, like he said, he can talk about that himself. Getting it out, that's a whole nother story. I won't talk about how I got my footage. I was just like, he's not gonna talk much about how I got his. But getting it out is another story. You have to then get the footage out. Some footage, small bits of it, you can get approved. You shoot it, you film it, then you send it up to public information officer and you say, hey man, this is the footage we shot, we want to send it out. He looks through it, he approves it, yay, nay. Once he approves it, then you give him a designated address that footage would go to, and they send it to that, right? If you want to get a hard drive out, that'll be a whole other process that you have to go through. So there's a step that you go through to get anything cleared, anything filmed. And the advantage we had, we worked for the Media Center, so we had access to the cameras. We had a person that we worked for who had the authority to take us out and film stuff, right? And then all we had to do is get that stuff approved to go out of institutions that we were trying to do.
Those booths are tight. I like them.
Yes.
Yeah. The question was about getting stuff cleared. Yeah. The other thing is, and I think you were talking about this too, is that everything that comes out of the prison is subject to censorship. And so what that means is that it can't be viewed as subversive to the system. And so I know like both of us were trying to figure out creative ways to do that at the same time as passing censorship, which is a whole thing. But I think also too, like one of my frustrations with being out is that it was very hard for me to get the stuff that I had filmed that I actually have ownership over, that I filmed inside, and to see other filmmakers and other media people go into the prison and freely move around and do whatever the F they want in there and take that out. And I think that, I think the other thing too is just that like, one thing about the Media Center is that it exists not because of the benevolence of the Department of Corrections, right? It is a huge part of their public relations, wing. And that I know Lonnie knows this, is that, a big part of what we were doing there was strengthening the system and saying, San Quentin is a unique place within the landscape of California prisons. It's the only place maybe in the whole world that has a media center, right? And so, it's a place where they do tours every day. People come into the prison, they go down to the media center, and they're like, wow, y'all are doing all these amazing things. It's so great here, all the opportunities that y'all are giving to incarcerated people. However, it doesn't exist anywhere else, right? And even us, we were within the 1% of San Quentin. And so I think at a certain point, I know that we all had to, recognize that like what we were doing is actually strengthening the system. And what is it that we can do? What are our commitments to our community and to people who are in other places that don't have access to cameras, that don't have access to podcasts, blah, blah, blah. Like, what is our commitment to them, right? Like, we have this opportunity, right? And like, what are the ways that we subvert the system? What are the ways that like we further like our political agenda or our political goals? And I think it was really important to me to like not make a film that is like saluting the system and saying how great it was and I got all these great opportunities because of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, what Adam was saying. So the idea, I think, for me was, and I was in the Media Center for 30 years, and the idea for me was, I'm going to take what they've put before me for their purposes, like Adam said, we know it's a public relations thing, and everything in life is a negotiation. A lot of you guys are college students. Well, guess what? The college you're going to was built on the backs of somebody else. You know what I'm saying? The benefits you reap are benefits that somebody else paid for you to reap. And that's just the way life is to a degree. But I think the important thing for me and for anybody in life is figuring out, as Dunn was indicating, that how do I take the things that I acquire, whether it be skills or material wealth, and utilize it for the better good of your other human beings. Because the reality is, we were in Oakland a couple of weeks ago doing a rally for the district attorney, the newly elected district attorney of Alameda County, Pamela Price. They're trying to recall her already. You guys might not know that down here. But it's the same plan they use for the district attorney in San Francisco, because they consider them too progressive, blah, blah, blah. They're gonna let people out of prison and all this kind of stuff here. But the issue for me was, one of the mothers there that was opposing it, she was like, how do you support this lady? And she's talking about letting murderers out of prison. So two things. I was a murderer, one. And the second thing is, I told her, I said, somebody is gonna sit in those spaces. There's not gonna be an absence of space in the district attorney's office. There's gonna be a district attorney there. The question about anything you do is who's gonna be there, and then how do you hold that person accountable, and how you hold yourself accountable. So somebody's gonna be in the media center. They're there now. Me and him out here talking to y'all. Right now, there's somebody in the media center. I mean, literally right now, somebody's sitting in the media center, unless San Quentin's on lockdown. And they're doing something. So how do you get those people to think about how they're holding that space? That's with anything you do in life. You gotta figure out, if you're gonna hold a space, how are you holding the space, and who's holding you accountable for the space you're holding? So that's what we try to do.
I don't have questions on here, but I'm gonna do this just for Lonnie. If you had a question, can you raise your hand and say?
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, you can just say it out loud.
So you mentioned how we live in a culture that really emphasizes like connecting with people outside as well.
Good point down there. But inmates, I want to say this, no fault of your own. So many of us try to disown that term. That's a state term that they gave us to try to disidentify us as human beings and take away our individuality and our human qualities, right? So a lot of us call ourselves incarcerated people, formerly incarcerated people, or what have you, right? Sometimes just human beings do as well, right? But in terms of your question, give me a little bit more, again, one more time, because I kind of lost myself.
So we live in a society that emphasizes individualism and isolation. So what was the journey like in reconnecting with community and with the people around you?
Outside?
Both inside and outside.
Both inside.
Yeah.
So for me, it was interesting. I did such a long time in prison that a lot of people thought that when I got out of prison, I'd be disoriented. That I wouldn't know what to do. I'd be overwhelmed and blah, blah, blah. And the day I got out, we were at the gate and everybody was asking me about, man, how does it feel? And I said to them, it felt amazingly normal to me, right? Because for me, I never allowed myself to become what we call institutionalized. I never bought into the ideal that you're an inmate, that you this, you that, you limited. And when people from the outside, I tell people, young people that's in prison all the time, when people from the outside community came in, I made connections with them, right? I didn't allow people to come in and I didn't say anything, or I was standoffish, or I was confrontational. Some guys think it's funny when people come in, they catcall them, literally, and all this stuff. I'm like, bro, what's wrong with you? These are the people that's actually voting on laws that's going to determine whether your ass stay in prison or not, right? So you need to really think about establishing a communication, not to prove to nobody anything or show nobody you this, but just the human connection that you have. So I did that in prison, and I was able to carry that outside. So the transition for me wasn't as difficult. I developed a lot of friendships while I was in prison with outside people. When I came out of prison, there was maybe 40, 50 people at the gate. And so that transition for me wasn't as difficult. Now, other people, and I'm going to speak to some of that if you choose to, it's much more difficult because they don't have the family. They don't have the infrastructure built up for a community that I and even Adamo had. But it's important, I'll say this, to establish connections if you're still in prison with the community outside. But people do come, particularly if you're in the same when other prisons last. But try to maintain communication if you got family and friends. Communicate with them through writing, whatever you can. And then maintain your sense of identity. Don't let the prison environment take that away. So when you come back to society, you can reintegrate in society much smoother.
Thanks for your question. So for me, before I got to San Quentin, it took me 10 years to get there, and I went to 8 different prisons before that. And it's hard, it's like most prisons in California are way out in the middle of nowhere. Central Valley, Mojave Desert, way up north. And, it's really difficult to maintain San Quentin is different. It's in the Bay Area. Like, there's a lot of people that come in. There's places where people never come in. You never see anyone from outside. And I mean, it's not just about what that does to you. I mean, I think it does something to you also, like, spiritually and emotionally, right? Feeling that far away. So it can be hard. And I think that also, too, like, people, like Lonnie said, like, people who don't get visits have to find other community inside. Sometimes that can lead you in different directions, right? You know, I mean, I think that in the film, there's, you know, a lot of it is about my relationship with Issa, and I was, like, so privileged to be able to have that relationship with her as the best friend. That even that relationship in itself was very different than, like, most of the relationships that other people were having, which is, you know, I just laugh about a lot of time when we were in the visiting room, people would be like, "Oh, is that your girlfriend? No. Is that your sister? No, it's not my sister, it's just my friend," you know? And, like, that we really invested in each other and invested in our relationship for you know, a decade plus and grew together. I was really privileged to be able to have that. But on top of that, like, I was also very privileged to be able to, like, meet amazing people and people who helped me grow and helped me find myself and find my purpose. So I guess that's the journey. I mean, I think we're all trying to find that out in our own ways, even out here, you know. Yeah. So it's not different. There's more obstacles inside, obviously. You don't have the agency or control over where you can go, where you can move, and in a lot of ways, who you can associate with. But it's the same journey, right?
And I just want to add one thing. And the other thing I want to add, because one of the things that I get constantly is, you know, there are some correctional staff that's in prison, and they're my friends. And people are like, "How could you be friends with them?" And they kept you in there, especially people that's really deep into the abolitionist movement and all that, and defund the police and all that stuff. And I let them know, man, listen, people are people. Human beings are human beings. And we got different paths in which we arrive at where we arrive at in life, right? And the people that you're talking about, some of those people helped me survive in prison. You talking to me about these people, and I just met you out here in the world, right? And these people helped me survive 10, 20, 30 years in prison. So don't tell me about those people unless you know those people, right? So I think it's really important when you, in anything in life, is just really recognizing that across whatever spectrum, you're gonna meet good people. You're gonna meet people that got, I don't know, bad, whatever term you want to use, but got ill intent, right? And then you have to figure out what that looks like for you as an individual and how you create that kind of community you was talking about with the people that value you and you find value with.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Oh, okay, perfect. Lonnie, I really look up to you and admire you, how you are a mentor to people. I'm sure that was a transition since you went into prison at what age was it?
I was 25.
Yeah, that's obviously very young. Younger than me. You weren't pushing 30 yet. But, sorry, just a joke. But I think...
So you really pushing 30?
Yes, I'm pushing 30.
I'm a teenager. I'm like, who's this little young girl much here behind me?
No, I'm pushing 30.
Hey, 30 doing good.
Anyhow, I've been really looking into how our juvenile system came to be, how it's based on racism, reformation schools with the black young children, how there's the the school to prison pipeline. I saw that you are engaging in work with children currently, and not only are you a mentor to the incarcerated population and your your friends from where you were formerly in prison, but now you're helping these children who obviously, if we don't have this intervention that you're engaging in, they could lead the same path, the same life. One mistake changes everything, and there goes all that time. Like, it was really beautiful to see that moment where you finally were free and you got to connect with everyone that you created such beautiful connections with. Like, I love seeing that love, and I know that you're probably spreading that same love and connection towards those younger people that might not have that. And so you were talking, someone was talking about in the film, like, that connection is what brings us together. Like, without community, we feel more inclined to commit crime and to do something against us. Even the fact that you said we can't look at it as us versus them when we're talking about POs and parole officers and, like, anything like that. We have to understand there's humanity in all of us. And I think there's something redeemable in all of us, obviously. So I just want to hear more about your, like, work with the juvenile population.
So it's crazy you ask me a question because tomorrow I'm supposed to go to see Galaxy. What is it called? Who? Yeah, going to the Galaxy. Going to the Galaxy 3, is it? Yeah,
the third one.
It's the third one, yeah, 3. And some of my students at Open Tech they FaceTime me day before yesterday, like, man, let's go see Guardians of the Galaxy, right? And I was like, Guardians of the what? They were like, Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And I was like, oh, okay, well, they wanted to go Thursday. Yeah, Thursday, they said, yeah. They wanted to go Thursday. And I was like, no, I can't go Thursday. So we're supposed to go tomorrow, because I was like, I'm not going. I'm watching the Warriors Thursday. And I'm watching the Warriors Saturday. And so tomorrow we're supposed to go, but I said all that to say that I think there's something really rewarding in being able to impact other people's lives, right, in a positive way. When I think about working with young people, whether it's in the juveniles or in the schools, what I think about is I wish I had somebody working with me like that, right? And somebody that understood what I was going through and where I was coming from. There was teachers, there was people, but they didn't understand me. They were trying to tell me stuff that I didn't even want to hear, or I didn't understand what they was talking about, right? So I try to be a person that makes it relatable to young people and kick it with them on the level. Not that they get like, man, you got to relate to them on their, get down in the mud. But no, I ain't getting in the mud with you, bro. But I'm going to talk to you in a way that's relatable to you, and I'm going to show you that I love and care about you, because that's what I lacked in my life. My mother died when I was relatively young. I'm going to go to a long story. But that's what I lacked in my life, was somebody cared about me in a way I needed to be cared about, in a time I needed to be cared about. And that would have probably changed the trajectory of my life. But because I didn't have that, I found people that I thought was giving me that. And those people were using me for their purposes, because I hung out with pimps, dope dealers, and players when I was 13 years old, right? And so that led me to the life of criminality that I became, the criminal that I became. So for me, it's getting in touch with these young people, getting to see, bro, that ain't what you got to go down. And that's not love. You know what I'm saying? And that ain't what real love looks like. Real love don't lead you to destruction or to harm. And so that's what I try to do. And so it's an honor for me to be able to do that. I've done it, and I'll say this last, and I'll pass it to Adamo. I've done a lot of harm in my life, so I want to be clear about that. And so all that I'm doing is I'm working to try to not repair, because I can't do that, but to try to save my soul, because we keep talking about spiritual, and I believe in this, that there's a world and a life after this. So my work, if whatever you guys see in me, value or whatever, I'm doing it because I'm trying to save my soul. I don't want to go to hell. That's what I'm doing. I'm just being honest.
I'll talk to the big guy.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's all the time that we have for questions. Adamo Lonnie, thank you so much for chatting with us and coming down to Santa Cruz. Let's hear it one more time.